Ken Trahan with Lenny Vangilder. It's our First NBC Bank weekend preview brought to you by First NBC Bank with 35 locations throughout Southeast Louisiana, the Florida Panhandle, and growing. That's First NBC Bank, proud sponsor of SportsNOLA.com. NBA draft, Pelicans, of course, a second-round pick. You never say never. You can always make a dent somewhere, Lenny. It's not likely, but it's happened before.
You never know when a trade might happen, or should we say maybe not so much a trade, but maybe a buy-in situation. You got teams always looking to sell their way out of the first round before. The Pelicans in their former iteration as the Hornets have done that. So it can happen. Is that a price that this management group wants to pay to identify someone in the first round that they want to go up and get? Let's see. And certainly, of course, they have the second-round pick. Like you say, it's not someone, whoever comes their way at 57 might be picking for someone else. It might be a European player who's going to sit overseas for several years. You never know what you're going to get. And if, even if you do, the chances of them making a final roster are not tremendously good.
Stay tuned. Of course, Alvin Gentry, the new head coach, introduced formally earlier in the week, and by all accounts, a positive review. Look at the video and read our story at SportsNOLA.com. The New Orleans Zephyrs, a brief homestand, and now hitting the road again after playing 3 at home against Round Rock, and they've struggled of late, have the Zephyrs, and obviously they've also struggled with weather, dodging rain. It seems like all season long.
It seems like when they finally get out of town, the weather was pretty good last week. They come back, and all of a sudden they're dealing with it again, although, got the game in to start the homestand. But still, that's what you deal with in New Orleans this time of year. It's it's a nature of things. The thing you got to be careful of, and I'm sure this has been on the minds of the Miami Marlins, maybe why they haven't sent many pitchers here, is if you know you're going to get that kind of weather, or if it's a possibility, and you've got a major league player on a rehab. We saw Jared Cozart come through. We nearly saw other guys coming through. The challenge that the weather presents, and that a guy goes out there for an inning, all of a sudden here comes a thunderstorm, you're in an hour and a half rain delay, that can mess with a guy's rehab schedule. So, rather be safe than sorry in some cases. Maybe you choose to put him somewhere else instead of New Orleans.
New Orleans VooDoo, after a bye week, back in action at Orlando on Saturday evening. They lost 6 straight games. They've added 1 defensive lineman, healed up a little bit. Hopefully that serves a purpose. They lost 47-42 to Orlando earlier this season.
Yeah, you hope the bye week just serves as a refresher, clear the head, get healthy, everything that goes with it, and play a game, and guess what? Here comes another bye week next week. So it's a crazy schedule the way it turns out.
This is the single worst schedule I've ever seen or been involved with in all my years of covering sports or being part of something, since I've done games for a lot of people. It's just hard to fathom how they could have come up with this schedule. So top-heavy with home games, all road games but one to end the season in the second half of the season with 2 bye weeks in 3 weeks.
Yeah, what is a 20-week calendar? How you have 2 bye weeks in 3 weeks doesn't make a lot of sense. Now, the whole league is off July 4th weekend. That was chosen, but the other bye weeks are spread out. And I know there was some switching around that happened originally. This bye week that was just occurred last week was supposed to be last month, and they switched some things on the schedule, as it were. But still in all, it doesn't seem like the type of thing that a well-planned out schedule should have.
Yeah, part of the deal is obviously you're playing in NBA and NHL arenas, so you have to schedule around those entities, and certainly that's a consideration. The other big national or international story, the World Cup in women's soccer, the U.S. and China in the quarterfinals on Friday night. U.S. hasn't scored a lot of goals, but their defense has been virtually impregnable.
Yeah, and you've got to be able to do it. So you can't lose if the other team doesn't score. Interesting, it's the first time the U.S. and China have met in the World Cup since that infamous 1999 game in the Rose Bowl, which really put women's soccer on the map in the United States.
I really did. Of course, high school football season forthcoming, and a new preview every day at SportsNOLA.com to get you ready for the season. And we're talking about programs from all over Louisiana, so it's a good read for everyone statewide.
Certainly is. Continue to keep up with our coverage. Like you say, from all over the state. We'll have previews coming up and previews you can go back and look at as well.
And one last note, the Hall of Fame ceremony is taking place in Natchitoches this weekend. You will be there. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, Louisiana Sports Hall of Fame weekend in Natchitoches. If you haven't been, You need to make it a point to go see the Hall of Fame with the brand new museum that's now 2 years old, downtown Natchitoches, right there on the Cane River. A great class again, headlined by a lot of people at Lafayette ties this year. Kevin Falk, former Karen Crow High standout, of course, went on a great career at LSU and with the Patriots. Jake Delhomme, played his high school ball in Lafayette. Of course, played at UL Lafayette, was here for the Saints and reached the Super Bowl with the Panthers. And Yvette Girard, who's a Lafayette native, started 2 great college softball programs at UL Lafayette and then at LSU. Took them both to the World Series, getting her due along with many others. And let's give a shout out as well to Paul Houlihan, the CEO of the Sugar Bowl, who is getting the Dave Dixon Leadership Award, and well-deserved.
Extra. Read all about it at SportsNOLA.com from Lenny and Lori Lyons. They'll have full coverage of the Hall of Fame induction ceremonies and beyond. Lenny, as always, thanks. Have a great week.
All right, you too.
That's our First NBC Bank weekend preview, brought to you by First NBC Bank with 35 locations throughout the metropolitan area and the Florida Panhandle. That is First NBC Bank, proud sponsor of SportsNOLA.com. He's Lenny. I'm Kenny. Have a great weekend, and God bless you.